There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't break bones or leave scars. It's the pain of waiting, the pain of silence, the pain of someone not coming back. And that pain, it teaches us more about who we are than comfort ever could. Pain is a strange teacher. It shows up without an invitation, without warning, and without mercy, and yet it always carries a message. The pain you feel when someone doesn't return, whether it's their absence in your life, their silence after promises, or the emptiness after they walked away, is not meaningless. It hurts so deeply because you cared so deeply. Think about that for a moment. If you didn't love, if you didn't trust, if you didn't believe, there would be no pain. The ache itself is the evidence that your heart had something worth holding on to. Pain does not come to the careless. It only comes to the ones who had something precious, something real, something that mattered. Sometimes we confuse pain with weakness. We think that if we're hurting, then we're broken. But the truth is the opposite. Pain is not weakness. It is the receipt of love, the price tag of loyalty, the tax of being human. When you feel abandoned, when you feel the silence of someone who didn't come back, that sting in your chest is not weakness. It is proof you are capable of love, proof you dared to open yourself, proof you lived with your heart on the line. And only the courageous ever feel that kind of pain. The weak never feel this level of hurt because they never risked giving themselves fully in the first place. There is power in knowing that. There is power in understanding that your pain is not a punishment. It is a certificate of authenticity. It certifies that your feelings were genuine, that your investment of time, trust, and energy was not fake, not shallow, not surface level. It mattered so much to you that their absence carved a wound in your spirit. And though it may sting, though it may ache in ways that keep you awake at night, it is also undeniable proof that you are not numb, not indifferent, not cold. You are alive with the capacity to love. And that capacity, though it brings suffering, is also the very thing that will bring greatness, joy, and connection into your future. Look around you, the most profound art, the most timeless stories, the most beautiful songs all come from the well of pain. And they exist because someone cared enough to hurt. If you've ever heard a line of poetry that stopped you in your tracks, if you've ever listened to a melody that made your heart tremble, you were listening to someone's wound translated into beauty. They hurt because they cared, and in that pain they discovered something worth sharing with the world. That is the gift hidden in your suffering. You now hold the raw material that, if shaped with courage, can create wisdom, compassion, and strength unlike anything else. And isn't that what makes life real? To care so much that it costs you something, to love so deeply that silence cuts like a blade, to hope so fiercely that its absence breaks your heart. If life was only about avoiding pain, we would never know passion. If it was only about staying safe, we would never know sacrifice. Pain is not a sign you lost. It is a sign you played the game of life with your whole heart. And that is worth more than the comfort of never risking anything at all. So, when you feel that sharp emptiness inside, when you wake up at 3 in the morning wondering why they didn't come back, don't mistake your pain for weakness. Don't mistake it for failure. See it for what it truly is. Proof you cared. Proof you lived honestly. Proof you gave yourself to something greater than just existing. And as much as it hurts, it is also the beginning of your testimony, the evidence that your heart is capable of holding weight, of carrying love, of building meaning. Because only those who care enough to hurt can ever rise enough to heal. Silence is one of the hardest teachers you will ever meet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't lecture, it doesn't explain itself. It simply sits in the room with you when someone doesn't come back. It fills the spaces where laughter used to echo. It takes the place of voices that once comforted you, and it presses down on your chest until you wonder if you can breathe again. At first, silence feels like punishment. You wonder what you did wrong, you replay conversations, you search for the missing pieces, but eventually silence reveals something deeper. It is the space where strength is born, because here is the truth. Strength doesn't come from noise. It doesn't come from applause or validation or constant reassurance. Strength comes when no one is watching. It comes when you are alone in your room with nothing but your thoughts and your doubts. It comes when you survive the long nights when you thought you wouldn't make it to morning. Silence strips away distractions, and in doing so, it forces you to face yourself. And when you face yourself, when you learn to sit with your own pain, your own questions, your own fears, you discover a strength you didn't know you had. Think about it. When someone is always speaking into your life, guiding you, telling you what to do, you lean on their words instead of standing on your own. But when their voice is gone, when the silence is louder than the world, you are left with only your own decisions, your own courage, your own fire, and that is when true strength emerges. Silence is not emptiness, it is training. It is the weight room of the soul, where your resilience is lifted and tested until you can carry more than you ever thought possible. Most people run from silence. They drown it out with noise, with distractions, with temporary comforts. They can't bear to be left alone with themselves, because they don't want to hear the truth their heart is whispering. But if you stay, if you endure, if you learn to walk through the silence instead of running from it, you discover that silence is not your enemy. It becomes your companion. It becomes the forge where your character is refined. You start to hear the sound of your own spirit, your own intuition, your own strength rising up in ways you couldn't hear before when life was filled with noise. And here's the beauty of silence. Once you've been through it, you become unshakable. If you can survive the quiet, if you can make peace with unanswered questions, if you can endure the emptiness of someone not coming back, you become immune to the small storms of life. The opinions of others don't shake you, because you've already been through nights when you had no one to lean on. The rejections, the setbacks, the betrayals, they don't break you because you've already faced the worst sound of all, silence. And you lived through it. So, the next time you find yourself surrounded by silence, don't resent it. Don't curse it. Don't run from it. Sit in it. Listen to it. Let it build you. Because silence, as heavy as it feels, is not empty. It is full of lessons. It is full of strength. And if you allow it to, silence will transform you from someone who depends on the presence of others to someone who can stand tall even when no one comes back. That strength, forged in silence, will be the foundation on which you build the rest of your life. Absence is not just a void. It is a lens. When someone doesn't come back, when the space they once filled is suddenly empty, your first instinct is to stare into that emptiness and see only loss. You see what's missing, what was taken, what no longer belongs to you. But if you stay with that emptiness long enough, if you let your eyes adjust to the darkness, something remarkable begins to happen. The very space left behind by their absence starts to show you things you could not see before. It sharpens your vision. It forces you to look beyond what was, and it dares you to imagine what could be. You see, when someone is present in your life, they occupy your world, not always in a negative way, but in a way that fills your field of vision. You shape yourself around their presence. You plan your steps according to their shadow, and sometimes, without realizing it, you allow their existence to define your own. But when they are gone, when their voice no longer guides you, when their influence no longer dictates your choices, you are confronted with a blank canvas, and that canvas is terrifying. Yet, it is also liberating. Because absence, as cruel as it feels, gives you the space to paint something new. Absence forces you to ask questions you might never have asked before. Who am I without them? What do I want when their opinion is no longer in the room? What paths are open to me now that their weight isn't on my shoulders? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. They tear away the comfort of familiarity and demand that you create vision for yourself. The absence of someone else creates the presence of possibility, and possibility is where vision is born. Think of the night sky. We marvel at the stars, but what makes them visible? The darkness. Without the absence of light, the stars would be hidden. In the same way, when someone doesn't come back, when their light leaves your life, it feels like you are standing in darkness. But stay there long enough, and you'll see stars you never noticed before. Dreams you had buried, strengths you had ignored, paths you had been too afraid to walk. Absence clears the clutter of familiarity and reveals the brilliance of the unknown. It is in absence that clarity begins to form. You stop seeing life only through the lens of what you lost, and you start seeing it through the lens of what remains, of what lies ahead. Absence forces you to stop clinging to yesterday's picture and to start sketching tomorrow's. That hurt you feel, that void inside your chest, is also a doorway. It opens your eyes to the fact that life is still moving, still unfolding, still offering you roads you never considered because you were too focused on the road you already knew. Absence becomes the teacher that says, look again, look wider, look deeper. And here is the secret. Vision born from absence is often stronger than vision born from presence, because it is forged in struggle. It is crafted in loneliness. It is painted on a canvas where no one else's brush is interfering. That vision belongs to you and you alone. And once you catch sight of it, once you realize that absence has sharpened your eyes, expanded your perspective, and awakened your imagination, you begin to understand that loss is not just an ending. Loss is also an opening, and in that opening, if you are brave enough to look, lies a vision that can change everything. When someone doesn't come back, when they leave you with silence instead of answers, your heart will burn with two fires. One is the fire of revenge, the other is the fire of resilience. Revenge whispers, prove them wrong, make them regret leaving, show them what they lost. Resilience whispers, prove yourself right, make yourself proud, show yourself what you're capable of. And in that moment, you have to choose which fire to feed. Revenge will consume you. Resilience will transform you. The temptation for revenge is strong because pain wants an outlet. Hurt wants to strike back. Betrayal wants to balance the scales, but revenge keeps you tied to the very person who caused your wound. Every move you make out of revenge is still about them, still giving them the power, still making them the center of your story. It looks like strength, but it's just another form of bondage. True freedom is found in resilience, because resilience is not about them, it's about you. It's about refusing to let their absence define your presence. It's about reclaiming your power and deciding that your story will not end with what they chose to do. Resilience is harder because it requires patience. It doesn't give you the quick satisfaction of getting even. It asks you to hold steady when your emotions scream for release. It demands that you rise without the applause, grow without the validation, and keep moving when no one is watching. But here's the truth. Resilience produces fruit that revenge never can. Revenge may make you feel better for a moment, but resilience makes you better for a lifetime. It builds a foundation of strength that no betrayal, no absence, no silence can shake. Think of resilience as the art of bending without breaking. Life will push you, people will leave you, promises will be broken. But resilience is the choice to stand back up again and again, not because you want to hurt someone else, but because you refuse to stay down. Resilience doesn't deny the pain, it uses the pain. It doesn't erase the wound, it turns the wound into wisdom. And that wisdom becomes your armor, your fire, your fuel. You stop asking, how can I get back at them? And start asking, how can I get back to me? And the beauty of resilience is this: it always shines louder than revenge. The best proof that you've healed is not in the way you destroy someone else's peace, but in the way you build your own. The best statement you can ever make is not screaming, "Look what I did without you," but quietly, powerfully living a life that speaks for itself. Because in the end, resilience is the only revenge worth having. The kind that requires no words, no confrontation, no payback, just progress, just growth, just undeniable strength. So when the pain tempts you to get even, pause. Breathe, remember this. The greatest victory is not making them regret leaving. The greatest victory is becoming the version of yourself that doesn't need them back at all. That is resilience. And once you choose resilience over revenge, you will rise in ways that make the silence of their absence irrelevant. Because you will no longer be living for their return. You'll be living for your own unstoppable becoming. We spend so much of our lives waiting for people to come back, waiting for the phone call, waiting for the apology, waiting for the explanation that will finally make sense of the silence. And in that waiting, we put our lives on hold. We imagine that healing can only begin once they return, but what if the truth is this? You are the return, not them, not the one who left, not the one who chose absence over presence. You are the one who comes back. You are the one who rises from the ashes of disappointment. You are the one who reclaims your own soul. Think about it. Every story of triumph, every story of resilience, is not about the person who left. It's about the one who stood up after being left. History remembers the return of those who refused to stay broken, not the ones who walked away. The person who hurt you, the one who disappeared, they may never come back. But that does not mean your story ends. Your story continues when you choose to rise. You become the comeback. You become the living proof that the absence of someone else cannot cancel the presence of your destiny. Becoming the return means shifting your focus. Instead of staring at the closed door, you turn and face the open road. Instead of rehearsing the pain, you rehearse your progress. Instead of waiting for someone else to validate your worth, you build your worth with your own two hands. You stop asking, when will they return, and start declaring, I will return, not to them, not to the past, but to yourself, to the version of you that is stronger, wiser, more unshakable than the one who was left behind. And here is the beauty: when you become the return, you no longer live in the shadow of their absence. You no longer need closure from the outside because you found closure within. You no longer need someone else to say, I'm sorry, because you've already said, I forgive me for waiting so long. Your strength stops depending on who walks in or out of your life. It becomes rooted in something deeper, your decision to rise no matter what. That is the true comeback story, not when someone else finally knocks on your door, but when you open the door for yourself and walk back into your own power. Becoming the return also means setting an example for others who are waiting. Someone out there is watching you, even if you don't know it. They're watching to see if you crumble or if you rise. They're watching to see if pain swallows you or if you use it to climb higher. And when you rise, when you become the return, you give them permission to rise too. Your story becomes a mirror in which others see their own possibility. That is how cycles of pain are broken. Not because someone came back to fix what they broke, but because you chose to stand up and be the return yourself. So stop waiting. Stop looking at the door as if your healing depends on who walks through it. It doesn't. It never did. The return you've been waiting for has been inside you all along. And when you finally embrace that truth, when you stop waiting and start becoming, you realize that the greatest return of all is not theirs. It's yours. You come back to yourself. You come back to your strength. You come back to the life that was waiting for you all along. Pain by itself feels meaningless. It feels like wasted time, wasted energy, wasted tears. You sit in the dark and wonder why you had to go through it, why life allowed such silence, why the one you trusted didn't come back. In the moment, pain feels like chaos with no reason, no order, no destination. But here's the secret that time reveals. Pain is raw material. It is not the finished product. Left untouched, pain will only bleed. But when it is shaped, when it is worked, when it is transformed, it becomes purpose. It becomes the very thing that fuels your next chapter. The human soul has a strange ability. It can turn wounds into wisdom. The scar that once embarrassed you becomes the story that inspires someone else. The heartbreak that once left you breathless becomes the strength that teaches another person how to breathe again. This is how pain transforms into purpose, not by erasing what happened, not by pretending it never cut you, but by deciding that your suffering will not be wasted. You turn it into something that serves you and something that serves others. Your purpose is often hidden inside the very thing that tried to break you. Think about the people who changed the world, the ones whose names echo through history. Their greatness was never born in moments of comfort. It was born in struggle. It was born in pain. They carried wounds just like you, but they refused to let those wounds define them. Instead, they let those wounds refine them. They took the silence, the rejection, the betrayal, and they turned it into energy. That energy became movements, books, inventions, revolutions. Pain was not their prison. It was their platform. But here is where the choice lies. Pain will either shrink you or stretch you. It will either keep you stuck in bitterness, or it will push you into purpose. You can spend years rehearsing the story of how someone didn't come back, or you can spend years writing the story of what you did when they didn't. Purpose doesn't erase pain, it redeems it. It takes the weight that tried to crush you and turns it into the very weight that builds your strength. Every tear, every sleepless night, every question you asked in the silence can be recycled into something powerful if you choose to let it. And when pain becomes purpose, it gives meaning not only to your life but to others. Because someone out there is walking through the same silence, carrying the same weight, asking the same questions, and they need to see that it's possible to survive. They need to see that pain can produce something beautiful, something worthwhile. Your healing becomes their hope. Your purpose becomes their map. Suddenly, the thing that once made you cry becomes the thing that makes someone else rise. This is why pain is never wasted when you transform it. It becomes a legacy. It becomes evidence that life can hurt you, yes, but it can also build you. It becomes proof that silence is not the end, absence is not the final word, and loss is not the last chapter. Pain transforms into purpose when you decide that what tried to bury you will instead become the soil where you grow. And from that soil, something greater, stronger, and more powerful than you ever imagined will rise. So when they don't come back, when the silence feels heavier than words, when the pain feels sharper than you thought you could bear, remember this. It is not the end of you. It is the awakening of you. The pain you feel is proof that you cared. The silence you endured built your strength. Absence created your vision. Your resilience became your weapon, not revenge. You stopped waiting. You became the return. And the pain that once tried to break you has now been transformed into your purpose. So don't curse the pain. Don't fear the silence. Don't waste your story waiting for someone else to complete it. Your life is not defined by who didn't return. It is defined by how powerfully you did. And one day, when you look back at this season, you will see that it wasn't just heartbreak. It was training. It wasn't just loss. It was preparation. And it wasn't just silence. It was sound of your destiny calling you to rise. The pain you feel when they don't come back is the very thing that proves you were always strong enough to move forward without them.